guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're gonna make something 80s inspired, a little cute 80s dress with a big collar in a really nice color. I already got everything prepared and I'm about to sew. If you haven't checked out my last video yet, you should definitely do that because I am actually donating 50% of all of my March sales of that specific pattern, the t-shirt pattern. It's also a very nice pattern to have for basic t-shirts, to SOS Kinderdörfer, which is a charity that helps out people worldwide and especially children worldwide. But at the moment, because of the crisis in Ukraine, also all the refugees in Ukraine that are trying to flee the country, and yeah, that's what I'm doing. And if you want to help out, you should definitely check the link down in the description below. We did already manage to donate a tiny bit, but of course there is way more that we can do, so please help out, support the charity, and click the link below. So as you can see, I already made a mock-up. I actually sewed the whole dress completely because I was so intrigued. And I already did the changes that I wanted to do. I made the waistline a tiny bit higher. I took lots of volume out of the sleeves because they were a bit too much in my opinion. I also took the shoulder seams in by a tiny bit, like 2 centimeters, something like that, so that this overlaps the seam like you see right here. And generally made it a tiny bit tighter because it felt like it was too big, too wide. And these are all the changes that I did. So we are ready to continue with the real thing. This is, by the way, a cotton poplin in this mint green. I will be doing this dress in a similar color. It's this lime green right here, because I think the white and the lime green looks really nice together. And you know, springy colors are coming, or are already here. Dopamine colors are here. So I'm really excited to have this dress in this awesome light green, which is perfect for spring. So that's what we're gonna do. And I already have some buttons prepared. I've got everything ready and I'm super excited to start this. So let's go. That are not in the pattern. These are just 5 centimeter wide selvage cutout strips from your fabric that you need to do for your collar, because there's these ruffles on the side. And I cut out 4 strips of 5 centimeters width, just selvage to selvage. And the first thing that we're gonna do is actually sew the selvages together just like this and iron it open, and then ironing it in half to prepare for ruffling these, because they're gonna get sewn on the sides of the collar and make these cute ruffles. Loads of ruffles to do. Now you want to iron everything in half, with of course the seam allowance laying on the inside, so be careful with that. And now that you're done with that, you want to ruffle this as much as you want. Just make sure that this is still enough of this for the circumference of your collar. It should be plenty enough, but I just wanted to say that. I'm gonna use my ruffling foot, but of course you can gather this by hand. Just use your biggest stitch and pull on the bobbin thread. Don't back tack at either end or beginning and you should be fine. Let's do that. So to start with the collar, you have to actually put these facing together. So I put the outer collar, made it one thing with a fold right here, and this one, just to save a little bit of fabric, I make a seam right here. It also says cut one on fold, but it's on the other side. You can put a seam right here, and that's what I'm gonna do. Put right sides together and close the center back. So now you want to put right sides of both the facing and the outer collar together, but also sandwich this piece right here in between with the folds facing inwards. So you want to start here, cut away the selvage, and fold it towards the inside to get a nice clean edge. Give it a press as well. And now you can start putting it right here, 1 centimeter inwards. So you want to have this start just where the seam is, the stitching line. So about here, 1 centimeter in and 1 centimeter in here. So you want to start right there. Put a pin in. And you want to guide it all the way around here. Make sure when stitching the corner that you put your needle in onto the stitching line as well, and then turn it like this. So you're gonna find this maybe a bit tricky, but it's better to do this on the sewing machine and not right here at the table. And then you also want to put your outer collar right sides together with this sandwich by aligning all of the notches and so on. You're finding that the outer collar is a tiny bit bigger, so you just want to make this fit the facing as well and sandwich the ruffles in between the seam. You can also do this one after the other, so just put the ruffles onto the facing first and then sew the collar on top of it. I'm gonna do both at the same time. So this is what it looks like, and once you turn everything over, you're gonna see how the ruffles just make it pretty cute. You want to cut down the seam allowance, especially here at the edges, quite drastically to about 3 to 2 millimeters, just because they're gonna, you know, be a bit bulky at the edge and you don't want to have bulk right there. So just cut it down, and then once you're done with that, you can turn this around pretty easily by just pulling on the ruffles right there. And that's what it's going to look like. Putting the pattern, apart from the color, together is pretty straightforward. So you're gonna grab your front pieces and your back pieces and close the darts by putting right sides together and stitching the darts closed. Here I made sure to draw in my dart position so that it's easier for me to sew it. But at the same time, I'm also gonna iron my button tape right here. So you have the notches and you're just gonna fold it at the first notch. That should be 2 centimeters plus your seam allowance. Just iron it. And then I'm also gonna iron in my seam allowance of 1 centimeter, so that I'll be left with a button tape that measures 2 centimeters in width. And once you fold it back over, it should match with the other notch that is in the pattern. And I'm going to do that for all of my button tapes, so also for the lower portion, the skirt portion. Once the button tapes are prepared for everything, I also closed the dart and ironed the dart towards the side seam. You can go ahead and top stitch the button tape down. Make sure to be very close to the fold right here and make a nice straight line. You want to do that for the front and then also for the front skirt. And now that we're done with that, here, the front and the back is almost done. Before we put these two pieces here together, these four pieces, we're actually going to put the pocket flap right here. It's just a fake pocket flap, but we're going to have real pockets in the side seam, don't you worry. But we're going to put this decorative pocket flap right here under the bust. There's actually the placement for this right here in the pattern, so we're gonna go ahead and prepare the pocket flap first. So these get folded in half, just as per usual, right sides together, and ironed in place. And because this is not something that we can just simply turn over again, we actually want to prepare the pocket flap sides by folding the seam allowance inwards, so 1 centimeter towards the inside, on all of the sides. And I found that just doing it for all of the sides is the easiest. I'm not gonna do like right sides together and turn it over, just because I think this is easier. But of course you can do that too if you want to. Just whatever is better for you and your purpose, I guess. I'm gonna do it like this. And then once you fold this back over, it should match up perfectly. And you can top stitch right next to the corners right here. Don't top stitch up here, because that's the one that we're gonna attach to the bodice. So just leave this up here open and just top stitch around here. We want to take our front pieces, left and right side, and measure 2.5 centimeters up from your stitching line. So from in my case, 3.5 centimeters up. We can go ahead and draw a line here. And that's going to be the bottom line of our flap. So I'm just going to mark the middle, because that's going to be the dart. And I can go ahead and pin this to the front very easily. And we're gonna stitch it down right here. So let's put the skirt to the upper front pieces. We're just gonna put these down and then fold them right sides together. I just see that I ironed these the wrong way, so you want to iron them that this fold matches up with the dart right here, and it faces to the side seam. So don't do this the wrong way, otherwise you're not gonna match up the folds nicely. But that's a quick fix. I'm just gonna re-iron it and just pop some pins in again so that this is fixed in place. So like this, and now you can go ahead and put right sides together. Make sure that the button tape aligns nicely. And then of course the dart and the fold align nicely. They should nest the seam allowances, so it should lay really nicely and easily just where it's supposed to lay. Just like that, and you can go ahead and stitch this close and then also overlock it. Right here, I overlock this and then I folded this edge right here towards the inside, so that when you have the dress on and it shows a bit, the seam allowance right here, the overlock seam, doesn't show on the right side. And then I just top stitch the seam allowance facing into the skirt at 5 millimeters. The only thing left for the front piece is to put the pocket in here. So to do that, you want to prepare all pockets. We're just going to do everything right now by just overlocking the seam right here. I'm going to go ahead and overlock everything and also top stitch this at 1 centimeter. Okay, so now that the front parts are done, we're going to continue with the back parts. So also closing the darts in the upper back and then also in the skirt part. I'm just going to iron this fold out. So now that both back pieces are completely done, we can also put right sides together at the waistline and do exactly the same as for the front piece. So that's the back piece, and we can put the right pieces, right sides together on top of it. Close the shoulder seam and the side seam as well. This time we're not going to leave the side seam open because we're not having a side seam in the sleeve, so there is no use for us to leave the side seams open. So we can go ahead and close the shoulder seams and then also the side seams. And once we come to the pocket, they should fit together just perfectly. Just align them and make sure to put needles right where you stopped stitching, so right where the pocket ends, so that you know that right here you have to turn the corner. It should be right at the notch if you did it correctly on both sides. Just make sure that the pin also on the back side is behind all of the stitches, right? So here and then also here, because that means once you stitch towards the inside of these stitches, they're not going to be visible on the right side once you turn everything over. So that's really important when putting the needles in, that you match up everything. Then you can close the side seam. Right here, turn the corner, go around the pocket here, and go down towards the hem. And the shoulder seam gets ironed towards the back piece. And this is all that we can do for now for the front piece. We're going to continue with the big puffy sleeves. And on the sleeves there are actually these really nice and big folds in the very middle of the upper sleeve. They are 5 centimeters deep, and you just want to prepare the folds and iron them in place really nicely. They're indicated in the pattern as well. And when you have your sleeve right sides facing down, so wrong side facing up, and you open the fold up, that's the fold that you want to fix in place. You want to actually sew the fold in place, measuring 8 centimeters plus your seam allowance. So before we're gonna put the side pieces onto the sleeves, I actually think it's easier to just gather the cap right here and then put the sleeves in, or complete the sleeves all together. So now done with that, we can continue and put the side pieces into the sleeves. So the longer side goes onto the back and the shorter side on the front. And we're going to put right sides together as per usual and just close it and then overlock it. And you want to iron the seam allowances towards the lower portion of the sleeve. That just makes the sleeve look nicer from the outside, and that's what you usually do. Once done with that, we're going to continue and iron the hem upwards. It's just a 2 centimeter hem facing, which is already connected to the pattern already. So you just need to iron 2 centimeters up. Just be careful with the fold part, as it can be a bit tricky. And I'm gonna top stitch it right here at around 2 centimeters. And now we're ready to put the sleeves into the armholes, which is pretty straightforward. Just match up the notches everywhere, and the longer side of the lower armhole piece marks the back, and the shorter side marks the front. So be careful with placing the sleeves into the correct armhole. This gets sewn together and then overlocked and then pressed into the sleeves. Now we can put the collar on. And the collar just fits right here. So it starts, we're gonna put, by the way, everything on the right side. So right sides face up. This is the wrong side, this is the right side. We're gonna put all of the right sides facing up. And now here, gonna match up the stitching line. So the stitching line is also right here, so 1 centimeter in, this way. And the stitching line on this is just where the ruffles end. So these two need to match up right just like this. We can put a pin in to hold everything in place. And then work our way around to the other side. And match up all of the notches in between, so shoulder seams, center back, And then on the other side the same thing. And now we can go ahead and just stitch at 1 centimeter, whatever your seam allowance is. So let's just stitch right at the stitching line. And to make this look really nice, we first want to cut into the round seam so that it lays flat, because the next thing is that we're gonna understitch the seam so that it lays nicely on the neck once worn. Just like that. And now we can understitch the seam, which just means that we're stitching the seam allowance to one side, closely to the original stitching line that we just did. And to make this inner seam look pretty, we're actually going to use some bias tape like this. I'm going to use white one. You can use whatever you have at hand, or you can even cut one out of your fashion fabric that you're using for this project. So I am just going to fold inwards the outer edge so that I have a nice corner right here in the front. And then I'm just going to encase all of the raw edges that I have all the way around to the other side, and then also fold the other side inwards and encase all of the raw seams that are on this side of the front, because you need to remember that this is right at the center front. This here is your button tape, so this will be very visible, and if you open this one up, this will be visible. So now you can go ahead and sew all around this, and you should have a nice finish on the inside. And it's basically already done. The only thing that's missing is hemming the dress, and then of course putting buttonholes and the buttons in. I'm gonna do the buttonholes and buttons off camera because it's just, you know how to do that. For hemming, I'm just gonna overlock the hem and then fold it up 2 centimeters and top stitch it at 2 centimeters as well, just as I did for the sleeve hems. And then we're already done. The buttonholes placements are of course in the pattern, so I'm gonna put 4 on the upper torso and then 4 with the same distance onto the skirt, and then 1 here and 1 here, so those are 10 in total. And I'm excited to see the end result, the dress worn and finally finished with everything. But it already looks super, super cute. And that's it already for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already, check out my last video and donate to charity. Otherwise, you can also purchase my baby tee Wendy pattern, which I made in last week's video, as I am donating 50% of my March sales of that pattern to charity. So do something good, help people out, that would be amazing. And you'll get a really cool, actually 2 really cool patterns with that as well. So give it a thought. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and ring the bell to get notified every time that I post. I post on Sundays, and I am actually doing in between uploads on my Instagram loads of reels all about sewing, pattern making, and fashion in general. So if you want to get tips and tricks on specific things that you can just watch on the go, check out my Instagram. Links are down in the description below as per usual. Also check out my other socials. Everything has the same handle as here on YouTube, THISISKACHI. And yeah, I think that's it. I'm gonna show you, of course, how this beautiful dress looks worn and completely finished. And I'm gonna see you next Sunday. Bye guys!